I want to ask about why it's lower-cased titling.
That's a great question. That's the first time I've ever been asked that question. So the reason the title is lowercase is because the film is based on a poem, and I wanted to honor the language of a poem, and so I thought that by making it lowercase, it felt like it was in the body of a poem. And I also didn't want to capitalize because, especially with this film and the native landscape, I think that capitalization puts a title on it, and it's almost a way of colonizing language, and I didn't want to do that specifically for this film.
I love that response. I'm glad I asked that question. So
first time I've ever answered that, so thank you for letting me find my way in that.
Why did you make this movie? What has motivated you to make this movie? More than how it happened, the why aspect, because I think that gets to the heart of what we get to see.
Mm-hmm. I started filmmaking. This is my second film. My first film was done with a drone and a phone on my family's farm in Lewisburg, Kansas, in its entirety, and I shot that over the course of the year. And the only part of the farm and the land that I did not film was the native prairie remnant. And I gotta remember on my camera, I'm talking like I'm on radio. And so really that film was a springboard to the other, as any of my creative projects are. One is a springboard to the next, or an idea or some fragment leads me to the next thing. And so I really wanted to go back to the prairie. I wanted to go back to the land. I feel like when we return to the land, we return to our power. And so really returning to my homeland and honoring that and revering that as I'm dealing with a lot of transitions in my family, death, life, rebirth, ideas of regeneration. That took me back to this landscape, this ecosystem that is so vital and is disappearing. And so I really did it as a way to revere the land that I'm from and revere what is lost, and in a way, eulogize this ecosystem. It's mostly gone. And I get a lot of questions about people wanting, what can we do to preserve it? What can we do to conserve it? 3% of it remains. It's, by and large, it's gone. It's in preserves, but I think in bigger time, we will see transformation, but we won't be around to see it. The prairie erupted from what was once a shallow sea, a whole new ecosystem. So when this is long gone, there will be a new ecosystem that arises out of this. And I wanted to commemorate this time, this landscape in this time, these people. That's why I did it.
It seems like nature's only enemy is man.
Yeah.
So how do we, as man, not be the idiots we've been? Like, I won't ask you how do we conserve the remaining 3%. I'll ask you, how do we know what to cultivate when it does go away and we have something else that's there? Are we equipped for losing even the 3% there, or the swamplands down in Florida, or whole islands in other? I mean, we're losing so much.
We're losing so much.
This is a weird, scary time because of it, because it's the first time we know exactly why we have done all of this, and yet we're not. I don't know if it's politics or whatever, but we're not having the arguments of, God, we got to step on it. We got to do something more.
Yeah.
Your film shows this beautiful thing that it won't be here probably before our lives end even. And that's scary.
Well, it is scary. You ask a lot. I think that what we can do is first become aware. Mm-hmm. And so I think the film is a way of bringing people's attention to the ecosystem. And I think as a people, recognizing our interdependence, not only on using the prairie as an ecosystem, there are only certain types of insects and butterflies and birds that can live on the prairie ecosystem, and when it's gone, that takes out all of these other living things, and everybody does their part. And so I think that just, where we are now as a culture, we're just so disconnected from the whole. We're individualists. Specifically, that's amplified in capitalist American culture, but that's where we are. That's where we live, and we have to learn to be reverent of the lands that we are stewards of, more so than just being owners of land, but working in relation with land. It is not man's dominion over. The earth will exist after we are gone. I mean, we are small potatoes in the big sea of deep time. I think we can only cultivate our awareness and really pay attention to our community and revere that which we have and realize our place in our interdependence with all mankind and all the species and landscapes.
Your film allows us to...
Boy, I sound like a wet rag.
No, we'll get to a happy moment.
Where's the joy with this guy?
No, we'll get to the happy part. This might be a happy question. We'll go with this. When I was watching this film, I felt transported to the visual that you were trying to amplify. I loved how soothing it was watching your film. I've seen a lot of films at the festival. I can't say they're all smoothing and fun and just calming. Were you aware when making it that you wanted it to be comfortable to watch this? Like, it's not, it doesn't come across as what we've just been talking about, as this doom and gloom. It comes across as we need to capture this beauty and protect it rather than we're all gonna die.
Well, people don't listen to that.
Yeah.
People don't listen to facts. People don't listen to science. People have not heeded the warnings of Earth and its, the Amazon rainforest. It's disappearing. I mean, we've known this since we were grade schoolers. I mean, it's been in the news for a long time. We're not paying attention to it, and so what I realized was that facts and figures don't work, and beating people over the head with information, it's not going to change people's minds. But what I found, especially specifically in my home county, which is a red state, a red county, and a red state of Kansas, many people on the conservation board of directors are red state voters. And so I didn't want to go this tact of like, we saved this, because then it's like, this is an environmental movie. This is a lefto pinko commie who is trying to push their liberal environmental tree-hugging ways against me. And I found if you just focus on the nature that people exist in, allowed them the space and the dignity to make those connections without being heavy-handed about it. Show them exactly what it is to revere. There's one shot in my film that I particularly love, and it's at the end of the flower sequence, the very first sequence, and I've shown all these flowers and this beautiful, it's music and everything, and then it finally lifts and you see it's a flower that's on the roadside that cars are driving past. We drive past it. We don't take time to enjoy what's under our feet. And I think it's just because we don't have awareness. We don't know that that flower belongs to this greater ecosystem and that it is a survivor. It's a lone survivor and a remnant of the atrocities that were done against the land and the people of the lands.
Are you able to look at the prairie and see it the way you did as a child?
I didn't see it as a child because I didn't know. I didn't know that it was this specific thing. We baled the hay just like we baled the hay on pasture, and so I didn't note the difference. It wasn't until much later when I was like, this feels different. Stepping out onto the prairie, it does look different. The flowers are different. The flowers are always changing. It's alive. It's so vital. It's not just corn. It's not a cornfield. It's not just a wheat field. This is a diversity, and it's palpable when you step out onto it, which is so crazy. I love to take my shoes and socks off and stand on it. It's so well rooted and deep rooted. If you ever get the chance to see the root systems of the tallgrass prairie, they extend for 20, 30 feet. It's crazy. Once they're tilled asunder, you can't reroot, right? But there's something so connected in that I think connects us to our deep time and those times that existed when it was a shallow sea. I think there's something really amazing about that. I got really far afield from your question, but I recognize that as I aged more than I did certainly growing up there.
And you answered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm overthinking it as I'm
No, you're fine. Having it shown here at Tallgrass, you going to take a minute?
No, I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. I feel like this festival understands what you wanted to show, and they programmed it accordingly. How important is a festival experience in showing a nature film? Do you think there will be an impact? Do you think showing it here will be something that is a positive for just even showing people what you're hoping people will open their eyes to?
So is the festival the perfect route perfect place for this? I don't know that it is. Nothing against the festival. I mean, it's the namesake of the festival is the subject of my film, so I think it's a real natural fit, and I am glad to bring it, attention to more people. It screened yesterday at noon. There were no more than probably 25, 30 people in the theater, which is no shade against anybody, but I would rather it be out and available to the public so more people can see what's so vital and right underfoot. I think the festival is more limiting for this type of film. I don't certainly regret being here. I'm very honored to be a part of such a reputable, amazing festival.
And I don't mean
But I want to make it available to the Miami County Conservation District, to the land stewards. I want to make sure that they see it. I think it's more important for that audience to see this film than maybe directors or producers, because it's not a narrative. I'm not running up, or it's not a documentary that I'm focusing on the Black trans experience in KCK. I'm not. That's not at all what this is. It leads to, being a part of a festival, being a part of the festivals that I've been in, it's laurels and it's kudos, and that goes on my resume, and that helps me get funding for future projects that I want to do. And so I think that's the benefit of festivals, is specifically where I am in my career, and these just happen to be the films that I've entered with.
Well, the only reason why I asked is because I think what you were getting at, the audience seeing it needs an audience that can take that material and use it somehow. And I love that you stated that it needs to be shown to the municipal places. It needs to be shown to the people who can impact that land directly, not as a derogatory to the festival. I mean, we're here for the festival.
Not at all. I love the festival. I don't ever want to come across that way.
But I love that you brought up that you were hoping to get it in the faces of people that can make a change and a difference. Because I see this piece something, I hope this gets shown to kids. I hope it gets shown to people who in the community who can utilize this, farmers, the local growers, the grocery stores, anyone who's involved in the connection back to that tall grass that you so beautifully have shown us. So thank you for answering that way, because I hope it didn't come. I hope my question wasn't so weird. That you answered it the way I hoped you would.
You're only asking really thoughtful, great questions. Thank you.
How much growth did you get from making this film and completing it and putting it out into the world, knowing that you've now shown at least a snippet of what you were hoping people gain a little knowledge of?
Mm-hmm. What did I get out of it?
Yeah, personally.
Well, I definitely deepened my affinity for the prairie and for the landscape, and a greater mindfulness of interdependence. This film started out as something else. It was going to be a documentary, pretty straight style documentary of the prairie remnant landowners in Miami County, Kansas, of which there's like 20, and the largest percentage of them are all women. And I thought there was something really fascinating in that. They're much older, and then COVID hit. And so I had to really scrap that idea because it wasn't safe to do interviews at that time. This was like spring of 2020. I mean, it's in the heat of the pandemic. And so I scrapped that idea and decided to focus just on the landscape itself. And so every couple of weeks I would run out to the prairie remnants that I had access to in my home county, and it was my safe place to be during the pandemic. I can't be indoors with other people, but I could be outdoors with this ecosystem that became, I know this sounds really, really wild, but it became its own sanctuary. It became its own kind of means of healing and health. And that became my relationship with it. It was a really healing and journey of wellness during that time.
Is there any hopes to tell that other documentary in the future?
Perhaps. Someone else just recently asked me that. I was at K-State and I showed the film a couple weeks ago, and it was the first time I'd come out about what it had been before, and people were like, that's a really good idea. Do you think about revisiting that? I would. I don't know if it's a film. I feel like might be a better storytelling podcast. I don't know if film... I captured so many filmic aspects of it, of like the prairie, what was going to be kind of B-roll. I made my A-roll. And I don't know if I'm going to make that film, but I feel like there's a story there that needs to be captured. And if I were to do it, I'd probably do it as a limited podcast series.
I started out in radio. It's the first thing I did. I wanted to get in radio. I loved radio. Quickly realized it wasn't going to be my cup of tea. Had to get out of it. Got into film, got into other stuff. You obviously love both mediums. Which is your favorite?
Oh boy.
David, I'm going to put you on the spot now.
I'd have to say sound. I like radio, and I like how it draws us in to participate more. It helps us. It just gives us enough guideposts that it makes us do creative work of imagination. And film, I think it can spell it out much more articulately in much different ways. It's like the difference between reading a book and watching a film. The book is always better. And I think, but it also calls in this co-creation. Radio demands more of you, and I don't know if I'm ASMR or whatever, but I like how it sounds, right? I like being touched in that auditory way.
Totally get that, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. As a radio guy, I'm proud to hear that, because I very much, even though I always do this, I yearn for my radio time. I love radio. I love sound.
Well, and sound was very important in my film.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that was a huge component of it, of capturing the opening credit is like the landscapes. I just wanted to draw people immediately. It's like, what is this sound? It affects you differently. It brings you in before opening your eyes to, there's that first image of the flower. There's the first cone flower. It's like you just kind of like, what is happening? It's like the orchestra kind of queuing up. And I really thought of that. It's like, that's the entr'acte before the overture of the flowers. And I definitely wanted to emulate that. And there's an artist, this was just on CBS Sunday Morning, and she gets into sound. Her name's Nikki Lint, I think. And she does a lot of sound in soil. And I wanted to get really close and hear, you know, I mentioned how it feels palpable. Like when you're on the prairie, you can feel it. I think you can also hear it. There's a real music to it in the wind, how the wind blows through it, that I also wanted to capture. I used multiple voices at one point during the roots section when we go subterranean, and I really thought of it as like this chorus of roots that were making their voices heard as they reached up and broke through soil. Now I'm really out there.
What did you shoot all this on? What equipment were you using?
I shot it on a drone, my iPhone, and a Canon DSLR.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far
really fancy.
You'd be surprised how many iPhones I've talked to. It's becoming I mean, drones are also becoming popular, but iPhone shooting is now a thing that's legit.
It's legit.
It looks good. God, it looks good.
Thank you.
I'd love to just ask a personal question about, now that I know you're a radio guy, what are you listening to podcast wise? What things do you absorb to help you with your show, but also just as comforts for you?
I don't know if I listen to enough things that comfort me. I mean, my favorite membership and my most used membership is my Spotify membership.
Mine too.
I love listening to music. So I'll maybe go there first. I've been really into Kendrick Lamar's new album. I also really like a lot of 60s, early 70s gospel. I just, at Format Festival, I fell in love with this band, the Marias, that I thought were fantastic. I've been exploring them more. I'm all over the map. I'm really open about all kinds of, obviously, gospel and Kendrick Lamar, the Marias. I like music because it sets a metronome, you know, and I find a lot of editing a film is very much a choreography, and I think that you find that through exploring those beats and those movements. You know, I can tell my editor that I want, you know, 139 through 156 or whatever, those time sequences, but I can do that myself, or he could do that work for me, and it'll come back different. And it's like watching two dancers on a stage. They're both doing the same moves, but you're going to pay attention to one, or identify with the fluidity. And I think that music has crafted a little bit of my process of filmmaking. I got a little far afield, but as far as what other stuff I listen to, I love Adrienne Marie Brown, social activist and author, and I like 10% Happier. I like On Being with Krista Tippett.
On Being's fascinating, by the way.
I love On Being. Yeah. She led me to a book I'm reading currently by John O'Donohue. I think it's called Walking in Wonder.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then recently I just watched the Sandman series, and I also watched The Rehearsal on HBO Max, and I'm still like really fucked up about that, thinking about how we use theater as a tool for developing empathy and gaming out scenarios in real life. I'm really fascinated by that show. Have you seen this?
Yes.
I think it's emotionally manipulative, and I also think it's really incredible, and I haven't stopped thinking about it.
It sticks with you. It captures you. I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm glad you watched it. I've been talking about it to other people. I'm like, will someone please watch this so we can talk about that ending? And oh my God, that kid and the guy.
Didn't see it coming.
Didn't see it. I know, and it's like when I'm talking about it to people, I tell them like just the first couple episodes, and then I like kind of leave it there. Yeah, that's what I'm listening to. I just started reading The Awakening, which I'd never read. That's new to me. That's what I'm into.
David, I kind of want to end it there. I think it's a sweet way to end it. I love it. The Awakening is our final line. David, thank you for making this film and making the way you made it. As an audio guy, like I said, it was soothing to watch. And as much as it is a tragedy to know what you're talking about, it's such still beautiful things. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to say also that you don't have to take this, but I was approached by KCPT, which is our PBS in Kansas City, and they want to run both of my films starting next month. So it's going to get, wider. People in the region, I think, will be able to connect more and see what it is that they're building their subdivisions on or whatnot. So that's a cool thing.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.